Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and this is day 19 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be rabbit, and today is going to be a shoulders and arms training routine. And the theme for today's workout is going to be assisted PNF stretching. So right now, I'm going to be demonstrating some more assisted PNF stretches. Now let's get started. And while we are resting, we are going to continue with the PNF demonstration in side lying position. And once again, when the patient is in side lying, you would want to have them flex the hips and knees. That way they're nice and stable on the table. And with the top arm, they could just drape it over the table. That way they're nice and comfortable. With the bottom arm, if you want, you could just have it as a pillow and just resting their arm. But for this one right over here, what we're going to be focusing on is the lateral pelvic elevators. And with the lateral pelvic elevators, what we would want to do is take a seat right behind the patient and go hip to sacrum. This is going to create some stability and make them feel a little bit more comfortable. And what we would want to do for the lateral pelvic elevators is we are going to just interlock our fingers and we are going to grasp and cup over the iliac crest. From this, what we would do is pull down, get a nice stretch, and then we would have the patient inhale and contract. So you would tell them, bring your pelvis up toward your rib cage, and then they would inhale, contract by bringing it up. And then on the exhale, we would just sink nice and deep to get a nice stretch in those lateral pelvic elevators. When we are focusing on the lateral pelvic elevators, primarily we're going to be targeting the quadratus lumborum, the internal oblique, and the external oblique. Some other muscles that are going to be involved with this particular stretch is going to be the iliopsoas, but not quite as much. And to a lesser extent, we're going to be getting a little bit of the latissimus dorsi and the longissimus. We're also going to be getting some of the transverse abdominis. With regard to the latissimus, once again, the latissimus dorsi connects to the thoracolumbar fascia, which attaches to the posterior ilium. So because of the fascial connection, that's why we're going to be getting a little bit of the lats involved. Now, with regard to this, we could also modify it a little bit depending on which fibers we want to target the most. If we want to just target purely the fibers in the coronal plane, then the way that we just did it, where we're sinking down and just going straight up and down into lateral tilting of the pelvis, is going to be ideal. If we want to target a little bit more of the anterior fibers, what we could do is we would change the orientation. So we would still keep the interlocking of the fingers, but instead of going at the top of the iliac crest, what we would do is we would shift our focus forward a little bit, and we're going to be pulling on an oblique angle. So from this position here, we would instruct the patient to bring their pelvis up and forward. So they would inhale, contract, bringing it to the front of the rib cage. And then on the exhale, we would sink deeper and go posteriorly. So we're going inferior and posterior. So on a downward angle, we're going to just pull away. This over here, if you are doing it in this position by targeting more of the anterior fibers, this is going to be great if we want to target a little bit more of the internal oblique and external oblique. And then if we want to target a little bit more of the posterior fibers, let's say you want to get into a little bit more of the latissimus dorsi, the longissimus, then what we could do, even the iliopsoas, is go from behind. So instead of going anterior to posterior, we would go posterior to anterior. So for this one, what we would do is shift our orientation here. So now we're at the posterior end of the iliac crest. And what we would do is have the patient inhale, and they would want to hike their hip up and backwards. So they would contract on the inhale, and then on the exhale, we would go down and forward and sink deeper into it. That way, we're going to be able to target a lot more of the posterior muscles. But this is absolutely terrific for anybody with low back pain or anybody with hip issues. And right now, our rest period is up, so time for set number 4. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.